What's up, everyone? Hazaril here for a Yu-Gi-Oh! 101 discussion video. I know I don't do too many discussion videos because really these are like spur of the moments videos that I don't really think of doing ahead of time. It's more so like if something happens that I feel needs to be talked about in regards to Yu-Gi-Oh! Being that someone outside of the trading card game culture, with Yu-Gi-Oh! In particular, says certain things I feel like I need to speak up on, or if somebody has been misled or has lack of knowledge and they play the game and they don't know any better than to do what they're doing, then I feel like it needs to be addressed because I'm one of those people that have always believed that one person isn't the only person to think the way that they do. Just because they have one person thinking this over here doesn't mean that there's not someone thinking that exact same thing. And based on that logic, if somebody doesn't know something in regards to Yu-Gi-Oh, that does, that pretty much means that someone else has that same lack of knowledge. And this is when somebody of experience needs to step in and let them know exactly why it's wrong, or let them know the rulings of the game to know that, hey, they're doing this wrong or they're playing the game incorrectly. And I've been playing this game since 2002. And if I'm going to make a series called Yu-Gi-Oh! 101, the 101, the fundamentals, the basics, then I better know something about the this game's basics. I better know something about the game's rulings. Otherwise, I would be a pretty idiotic individual to come on YouTube and act like I know so much, you know, with a series like this, and I'm giving you false information. So I better know what I'm talking about if I'm gonna make a Yu-Gi-Oh! 101 series, and I do. For somebody that's been playing the game as long as I have, I should. And it was a couple instances that happened pretty much in like the past couple of weeks that I feel like I do need to touch on. Now, my original intention was to turn these into two separate videos, but I feel like I can address it in the same video because it pretty much touches on the same subject, that lack of knowledge can hurt you in this game. It can hurt your pride, it can hurt your ego, it can pretty much make you pissed off. And that's nothing to be embarrassed about. We all were there at one point. We all played the game incorrectly before we learned how to play it correctly. You know, and it's sad, but a lot of the new guys, a lot of the newcomers that are coming in, they are being taught incorrectly, or they aren't being offered the knowledge of the game, so they go on playing the game without proper knowledge as to how to play it. And so mistakes that I'm finna speak in this video about are things that I feel should be common knowledge. Now, these two situations happened within the past couple of weeks. One happened just yesterday, and one happened, I think, last week, last Friday. And this is something that I feel like I need to speak on because, again, some misinformation has been passed around, and this needs to be talked about, and the details need to be ironed out as to how to play this game properly. Now, first, I'm gonna start what happened. I would say like 2 weeks ago, and it was a situation where someone didn't know when to activate number 39 Utopia's effect. Now, Utopia has an effect that when an attack is declared during either player's turn, you can detach one exceed material from that you can detach an exceed material from Utopia to negate that attack. So during this situation, my opponent was using Utopia, and he had attacked a monster on my side of the field. When he did this, I activated Mirror Force. Now, Mirror Force is a card that activates when an opponent declares an attack. Now, the confusion that happened with him is that he didn't understand that Utopia's effect can only be chained during certain moments. However, when it comes to trap cards that activate once an attack is declared, you can't chain Utopia's effect to that because of the fact that at that point the trap card effect is what takes over. It's too late for Utopia to activate that effect because then the attack can't be pulled back. It's pretty much like going into damage calculation already. But just to show the rulings of that, because I do have to prove this in video, and here we are. Now the website I'm on right now is YuGiOh Wikia. Now what YuGiOh Wikia is, it's pretty much the go-to site anytime you want to look for any rulings in regards to Yu-Gi-Oh cards or any rulings in regards to Yu-Gi-Oh period. What they do is on the website is that they take the rulings and the information from the Konami website and they just put it on YuGiOh Wikia so that you can have it right there without having to do a bunch of digging on the Konami website. And right now what we're looking at is the rulings for number 39 Utopia. And as you see right here on the fourth line, it says during the attack declaration, when the opponent already activated a card like Dimensional Prison, you cannot chain this card's effect. Now, the key word, because I know people just like that guy, he argued with me. Well, the card says Dimensional Prison. It didn't say anything about Mirror Force. It said like. Keyword, like. Reading comprehension. Work with me now. Any card already activated, when the opponent already activated a card like Dimensional Prison, that means any card like it, any card that has the same activation requirements, Mirror Force, Dimensional Prison, etc. Any card that activates when your opponent declares an attack, Utopia cannot chain its effects to that card, because when Utopia declares an attack, it has to make a decision. The player that's using Utopia has to make a decision whether they want to stop that attack or whether they want that attack to go through. If they didn't stop that attack prior to that trap card activating, then the effects of the trap card takes over, because Utopia's, it's pretty much like destroying an opponent's monster, then activating Utopia's effect. You wouldn't be able to do it at that point. That's entering the damage step, and that's, pretty much going past when the effect should be activated. When Utopia attacks and your opponent activates a trap card like Dimensional Prison, the attack has already been declared. So that's the activation requirement for that card. And when that card activates, the effects of the trap card take over. Utopia can't cancel the attack at that point. Dimensional Prison, Mirror Force, all that, the effects of that trap card already goes through, because you can't reverse the activation of a trap card via Utopia's effects. So that's the rulings for it right there. So for anybody else that may go up against somebody that feel like they, says otherwise, that they can chain Utopia's effects to a card like Dimensional Prison or any trap card that can activate during, the battle step, that activates once an opponent's monster declares an attack, it's too late then. So just refer them to this video and they can see it for themselves. I'm right there on Yu-Gi-Oh! Wiki. I'm going to have this link in the description to number 39, Utopia's card rulings, just to help you out so that you guys can just look in the description and you can click on it and you can, already have that link at your disposal. Next, I need to talk about a situation that happened just yesterday. And let me give you some perspective so that you can understand what's going on here without me just diving straight to the point, because I feel like people need to know this if I'm going to explain it. As most of you know, I have a weekly event called Yu-Gi-Oh! 101 Fan Day, where I go on websites like Dueling Network, and I have been known to go to Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro to duel the viewers that want to, have fun with me. They always hear me talking about me knowing so much about the game, and saying like I can make my own builds and things like that. They want to see that in action. So I spend time with them. I go on the website, I duel them, and I have fun. But occasionally, and pretty much more oftentimes than none, you run into people that either are trolling, they're just being flat out idiots, they're stupid, or they just don't have the knowledge to properly play the game, and they're so dead set on that misinformation as the correct information that they try to pass that off to you. But if you know better, you don't budge. And this is the case with me. If I know better and I understand the rulings, I'm not going to budge just because you don't know what you're doing in the game. Now, I'm not going to name drop. Hence the reason why I didn't name drop during that last little situation. I feel like this is a case of misinformation. This wasn't a troll. This wasn't an asshole. This wasn't anybody being rude. I think this is just a lack of knowledge being passed on, or somebody taught somebody else inappropriately as to how to go about playing the game. So they got the misinformation and it just trickles down. And then when it came to somebody that actually knew how to play the game and that understood the rulings and the basics of the game, they try to fight it with all their might. And then you send them the rulings, via from Konami, or or in Yu-Gi-Oh! Wiki, or whatever the case may be. Like you send them the rulings that Konami made, and then they still get mad at you, and it's like, hey, like whatever. I'm just trying to help you out. I'm not going to cheat you, but let me give you some perspective. This past Fan Day was Friday the 13th. So I had a special Friday the 13th edition of Yu-Gi-Oh! 101 Fan Day where I only used horror themed builds. So I used like spirit monsters. I used some eerie, like gimmick puppets. And for the first time, I tried to use a build that I never used before, just to keep it, horror themed. I used the Ghost Tricks. And it was a situation that arose when I was going up against an opponent that was using the Mystic Swordsman, or a variation of some Mystic Swordsman build that they had. And let me tell you about the situation that actually happened now. During this duel, my opponent had a face-down Mystic Swordsman level 7 and a face-up Mystic Swordsman level 5. Now, Mystic Swordsman level 5 has an effect that prevents it from being affected by the effects of trap cards. I mean, not trap cards, but by the effects of spell cards. My bad. It has an effect that prevents it from being affected by spell cards. What the situation was that I had a face-up Ghost Trick monster on my side of the field, and they had a face-up Mystic Swordsman level 5 on their side of the field, and a face-down Mystic Swordsman level 7. Now, what happened was I normal summoned my Ghost Trick Witch, which has an effect that targets a face-up monster on my opponent's side of the field and switches it to face-down defense position. And then I activated Swords of Concealing Light, or I believe that Swords of Concealing Light was already activated on the field. But either way, what happened was that I'm gonna have to look back and see. But either way, I think this pretty much still applies. So either way, this pretty much still applies. But I used the effect of Ghost Trick Witch to switch his Mystic Swordsman level 5 to face down defense position. At this point, the effect of Swords of Concealing Light takes over. They did not understand that when a monster is face down on the field, their effects no longer apply. You know what I mean? Or their effects is no longer active. If they had an effect such as Mystic Swordsman level 5. Mystic Swordsman level 5 has an effect that activates that is pretty much, it's a continuous effect. And if it gets switched to face down defense position, the effects are no longer active on that monster because the effects aren't revealed. And just to show you what I mean, I came back to YuGiOh Wikia, and right now what we're looking at is a section on the website, is a page explaining face down defense position monsters. And as you can see right here in the second paragraph, it says face down cards have no properties, name, attribute, type, level, rank, attack, defense, effect until they are changed to face up. A face down card being looked at or still revealed is still considered face down and is returned to its original position once the player has finished viewing it. So if a card like Mystic Swordsman level 5 is face up and it is unaffected by spell cards, right? Because of the rulings of YuGiOh, of Konami, the ones that made YuGiOh, they made this ruling. If a monster is like Mystic Swordsman level 5, if it gets switched to face down defense position via trap or monster effect, that monster can still now be affected by spell cards. So creature swap, anything like that, it's fair game now, because that effect that prevents it from being affected by spell card effects is no longer applied until it's face back up again, until that monster is face up again. And just to further expound on this, this person was arguing with me and said, no, the monster, in order for that to be the case, the monster would have to, the monster's text would have to say, as long as this card is face up. So to counter that, I actually went to a section that, actually explains, unaffected by monsters that are unaffected by spell cards. And let me just say this before I, dive into this. In the new card text, meaning in the recent cards that are coming out, they have to add in new card text for the new people that are coming in that don't understand the rulings as well as someone such as myself who's been playing the game for a long time. So in a lot of the older cards, they don't have the updated text that may say things like, as long as this card is face up on the field. But that's still the case, as you can see right here. Unaffected by spell cards. Right here in the first sentence, some monsters are unaffected by spell cards. The more complete meaning of this is unaffected by the effects of spell cards while this monster is face up on the field. They had older cards in YuGiOh where this was still the case, though they didn't have that text in there that said while that monster is face up on the field. But that was still the case, because by default in YuGiOh, once a monster is face down, its effects aren't revealed, so their effects aren't active. You see what I mean? Now these days, of course, they're being more correct. They have to make sure that the new people don't get confused. So now they're trying to. So unfortunately, they have to breastfeed people, and they got to make sure that more people know all the little things. So they got to throw that in the card text, which is cool. But just understand that I wasn't trying to cheat you. Now the person that I'm talking to, I understand that they watch the videos, and understand I wasn't trying to cheat you. This is just Konami's normal rulings. This is just their normal rulings. I wasn't trying to cheat you. So next time you go up against somebody, or if anybody else that watches this go up against a situation like this, of course, refer them back to this video, and you can see everything and they'll be able to witness everything for themselves. So unless the monster card says something about a lingering card effect or anything like that, or if the ruling states about anything lingering, because they, as I mentioned before, they're putting extra card text just to make sure that the player understands exactly what the situation is when these monster card effects are active. They have to put things in there now that have to say, oh, while this card remains face up on the field, or as long as this card remains face up on the field, saying like this card's effect is active and things like that. They have to do that now because the newcomers don't understand it as well, so they have to be handed all this extra card text in order to help them out. But a lot of the older cards do not have that card text in them, such as Mystic Swordsman level 5. So that's pretty much all it is. So hopefully next time you go up against whoever, you can refer them back to this video to help them out. And as always, I try to pass along the proper information and the proper knowledge of the game so that people can be properly informed as to what effects are, or like what the rulings are. I understand the basics. I may not always understand like card rulings when this card goes up against this card or whatever the case may be, but when it comes to the rulings and the basics of the game, I've been playing this game too long not to know them. And hopefully this proves that what I was telling you was right. I'm not gonna sit there and lie to you or anybody else. It's my passion that if you're gonna play Yu-Gi-Oh, then you need to get the right information. And I know it's a lot of people out there that don't care if you get the right information or not. Like they'll just hand you a build and they'll just say, here, just go play this, and you don't know what to do. You don't know about the rulings. You don't know about this, that, and the third. You know what I mean? So exactly how the hell are you supposed to play the game properly when they won't tell you? So like I said, I don't mind answering questions. I've been playing this game a long time, so if you have any question in regards to any ruling or anything like that, I've answered plenty of them over the years. So I don't mind. I want people to have proper knowledge of the game. So that's all it is. So this is a discussion video, addressing the lack of knowledge when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh basics, and I hope that this has helped you in some way become a much better duelist and a much better Yu-Gi-Oh player. And little by little, like we're going to eradicate all of the misinformation that gets passed on in its game, and we're one step closer to that happening now. So thanks for watching. Peace, and as always, keep dueling.